Hello and good afternoon. My name is Andy Ng and I am the Director of Sales Enablement here at Central Hygiene. The piece we're going to talk about today is redefining the outside seller experience. The reason we have chosen to talk about this is because we realized that the old way of selling is probably not coming back, and we're needing to adapt our KPIs, modernize our outside field force, and empower them and compel them to adopt the new change quickly. What we're going to do is talk about what we've historically seen, what we are noticing now, and conclude on how we have taken this journey to anticipate the future state so as to properly equip and compel and bring to action our sellers to modernize. One of the things that we looked at real quickly was our seller base. If we're looking for them to adapt, we need to make sure that we're speaking the right language. Most of our sellers are between the ages of 25 to 65 years old. That represents 40 years of distinct selling styles. We're in the year 2020, 40 years back. Let's start at 1980s. And in the 1980s, there was landlines, there was fax, there was analog, there was voice, people communicated over the phone. And then now in 2020, we have blazing fast internet with 5G, tablets to show full video, iPhone, Android, email, which really is used in conjunction with some kind of video format, Vmail. And some of our devices can do cloud computing with analytics instantaneously through cloud computing. So what this chronological list shows is our outside sellers, they are accustomed to change. It's when and what kind of buy-in do we need to convince them that the change should be executed right now. Our buyers have changed too. Most of our buyers are between the ages of 25 to 65 years old. That represents 40 years of distinct buying styles. And some of the sellers, when they were purchasing items in the 1980s, they might be purchasing from the yellow pages, from classified ads. They might be, remember those auto traders in the boxes on the side street next to a bus stop? Well, that was the thing. As we progressed through the 1980s to the 1990s with the World Trade Organization and large retail superstores, hypermarkets like Carrefour, Target, Sears, Hudson Bay's, we've then, with the introduction of internet, been able to move the large superstores to the customer's home through the Amazons of the world, the AliExpresses of the world. And now what we're seeing is buyers are now purchasing directly from manufacturers. We've seen the Adidas app, huge sports manufacturer, bringing the storefront through a application on the cell phone or a desktop. Zara, we see HP Direct bringing their services directly to consumers. In the year 2030, who knows what's going to happen, but we know this, that buyers are demanding more and they're buying it in a very different way. Outside sellers feel like they are becoming inside sellers. And what we're discovering firsthand is what I think we knew already, that these two distinct groups, the inside sales and the outside sales, they're two different animals. It's not easy to turn an outdoor cat into an indoor cat. We assumed that our outdoor cats can make the change, but some might not, and some might not make it. We're trying to drive home that the change is inevitable, growth is optional, but as sales enablement, we need to be able to provide proper feedback and tools to make sure that we give a chance to everybody. See, COVID-19 was a work while home experiment that many companies were forced to adopt. But strangely, buyers are accepting it and they're liking it. Virtual technologies, they're redefining what human connection looks like. More and more companies are mandating 100% virtual connections, virtual meetings. They're studying more efficient. They're studying that it is providing more employee safety. And we're seeing it too. They say that 54% of our sales staff say it's hard to get a hold of our prospects and buyers. And 50% of our prospects prefer to receive email. They say it's the best way. So we send them an email. The challenge to us is we've focused a lot of our efforts previously on feet on street and F2F, face-to-face efforts. So outside selling in the virtual world hasn't been fully mapped out. And the difficult part to us is that giving a chance to everybody, some of our non-tech savvy reps might not be able to make the effort and might not even be possible to make the change. We've mapped out some of the processes that our outside sellers follow and realized that most of them follow the inverted pyramid. Well, one thing is true about change, one thing has not changed, and that is to keep the sales funnel full. What has changed is how they do it. Finding leads can still be done the old-fashioned way by cold calling, but you just can't walk in and talk to people anymore. You can still reach them out via phone, but it's also hard to reach people in the office. Most office corporate policies, they all block the traditional efforts, and that's where our creativity and use of technology has to come in play. When we're focusing so heavily in our previous state on phone and face-to-face, our hoppers and our conversion ratios will definitely be impacted, and our aging is going to be twice as long if we can't reach people. Future state, what we see in our successful sellers. They're just being more creative in finding leads. The company has also invested a lot in web initiatives and email campaigns. We still require some of the phone activity on the prospecting part of it. However, the follow-up when it comes to presentation, proposal, it's really depending on what the buyers want. They're redefining the mode of interaction. And what we found is looking at the type of video emails we've sent and emails we've sent is just best practices, such as in sending videos, don't write the purpose of the video, you just write in the subject line, quick video attached. And people, we found, were more likely to open a video email than they were with these kinds of quick snippets. So these are things that from the data side, we're trying to help map a new outside experience. And the sales folks are encouraged to use video in virtually every part of the sales cycle. Post introductions, pre-virtual meeting, education, post-meeting. And as management, we're learning from the experiencings and the successes and fails from these efforts. What we also found was in future state that yes, it's going to be convenient to send videos, but these videos are also useful as they can be forwarded from mobilizers to the actual decision makers. Now that we know that the outside selling group has success in using different types of media to engage with buyers, now this poses us a big question. At what point does an outside seller turn from a phone to email to Vmail to video to face-to-face in the sales cycle in the inverted pyramid? Or do we try to retune outside sellers to turn 100% virtual? I believe we don't need to set specific goals, but we should strive to change the behaviors. We also need to consider retuning our ideal seller profile, invest in the right people on the bus for this transition. In reality, not every top seller is going to make it. And as coaches, we also need to change the way we coach. We need to teach these tools, but also embrace it and use it to teach as well. Then we proceeded to look at two seller profiles. We'll call seller A our new school outside seller who was adapted and was able to maintain the same conversion ratios. And with seller B, who is old school, hoping that the new normal has come back and how their world have probably changed. So we took one of our higher producers who has adapted really well to the new reality, and we have asked and we have probed what has changed and what are you doing differently to be able to be more successful than your peers? And we found that this seller or these sellers were adapting to the new environment. They have embraced new email techniques. They have started to use technology that most are free. They've started to use videos to send emails. They're using Skype or Zoom for video face-to-face technologies to further meet and even prospect new accounts. And these sellers we found have maintained their same conversion ratio. We found that the deal size was much higher. Side note, sellers and buyers, their engagement is much muted, so buyers are more happy to buy everything from one single source. So, nice side effect. We proceeded to look at a different set of seller base, our profile Bs, the unaware, the reluctant, the knocking on door, cold calling, attempting to do things the old way reps, resisting technology and change. These reps need more leads to produce the same results as profile A, not because they are not as good or they have devalued in the way they sold. It's all of the factors that we've mentioned before, that sellers are just not able to talk to the right prospects, and prospects are just not in-house to entertain cold calls anymore. A lot of our buyers are even refusing meetings without pre-set appointments, and some of them don't even set appointments. So I believe that seller B they're not effective. It's the current environment doesn't allow them to sell or to be effective face-to-face unless they start to change the way they look at their sales process. So we want to be inclusive when it comes to retooling our outside sales rep. And we want to bring home to the fact that there is a true cost of digital reluctance to the sellers. As an organization, we want all reps to adopt and drive home run sales all day, every day. However, we know that there's a human factor, which is the buy-in from the outside sellers. So let's look at the true cost of digital reluctance. The conventional status states that profile A is 100% more effective than profile B, but really it's more than that. In order to turn leads to qualified prospects, we need to consider the call to connect efficiency. And it takes about 7 calls to reach one lead and to turn it to either a prospect account or we disqualify or not interested. 14% is what Gartner suggests. Let's say a standard conversation, again this is different from company to company, from process to process, is 2 minutes from crow to hang up. So seller B, 100 more leads, means he's going to be dialing approximately 700 more dials, and at 2 minutes each, it's 1,500 more minutes, and it's 23 more hours. 23 more hours is half a week. And the true cost of digital reluctance isn't dollars and cents. It's the organizational cost. Sellers become disenchanted. They're not satisfied. They have less trust in the system and therefore less trust in management decision. It will be more difficult to empower or move them or motivate sales reps to move or change. And eventually that leads to higher seller churn. The question we have is, how do we make seller B look more like seller A? And how do we compel and how do we bring to action to have seller B work more like seller A? If we were to look historically and really cut up our sales force and how they were successful in the past, we believe that the inverted funnel worked somewhat like this. The interaction between the seller and the CRM was voluntary, and the feedback that was generated from the CRM may or may not be 100%. So follow me with Roger, who goes through his conversion process from leads to close won. In all stages, we rely in previous state very heavily on data compliance, vigilance from our sellers, and even just pure willingness to input data. And who likes admin? Sellers are not great in admin. And we expect them to voluntarily provide information of the sales cycle back to the CRM so that our coaches and our management will be able to pull corrective reports, suggest corrective actions, suggest performance plan or activity management. So all these processes that we had before relied very heavily on voluntary data and information. Sometimes the seller might look at the CRM and be self-aware and understand that the CRM is working for them and not working against them. This is based on your culture, if you're going to use the CRM as more of a whipping tool or more of a coaching tool. But then from our organization, we were asking ourselves some really difficult questions is, if the data that we're providing or we are being provided by sellers is not 100% clean, then how can we say that the actions that we are proposing are going to be 100% effective? It becomes garbage in, garbage out. And if it's not 100%, then how are we going to be able to provide 100% honest feedback to make our sellers successful? This was the previous state feedback, voluntary information that may or may not work in future state. Therefore, by continuously examining and using deep thought and looking at our successful sellers, we now believe that the future state go-to-market should require a model that requires little to no voluntary data transfer from the seller to the CRM. And this can be easily done through discovery of different software packages. Some companies provide single package softwares that can do this. But the whole idea of using a data model or a go-to-market model for our sellers that requires little to no voluntary data input will give us great data hygiene. As a company, we're now focusing on automating user inputs. So the sellers do not have to remember to do data inputs. It will just be done for them automatically through hard-coded fields, software that has been put into their phones or into the computers, not so much so as a big brotherish kind of maneuver. It's more of we're trying to automate the data collection as to be able to provide honest and good feedback to the actions, and in the future state to provide good corrective actions that do not require judgment calls. The best thing is that the coaches are living it as well. We are now using automated software as a layer between the CRM and the actions of our outside sellers, and this feedback is automatically fed back to the CRM. So instead of using judgment calls or interpretations between the seller and the CRM, we are now replacing it with run rates, KPIs that dictate how fast each seller is moving based on his or her selling DNA. We are not looking to change a person's personality or selling style. We're looking at changing behavior. And we're providing good ratios. With good data, we're providing good click to connect, we're providing good events to ops, we're providing good close one to ops. And this is all good feedback that sellers believe in, and this is stats on themselves. They do not feel that the corrective action has been dictated from top down, and enablement is able to have a candid, solid conversation with our successful sellers and the sellers who are probably not willing to adopt, to move to a future state go-to-market willingly and honestly. We found that our successful sellers are moving from a linear top-down sales funnel, sales hopper system into more of a cyclical funnel that looks somewhat like this. In this we see that the AI and the CRM is placed in the center of the funnel, and the seller is now obtaining feedback from the data that is being gathered through the interactions of the software and our prospects. So this all happens in the background. And what we found was that the feedback that is generated from our background software is providing the right tools and the right time for offsite sellers to engage with our prospects and buyers. The sellers can now be a trusted advisor. They no longer have to worry about keeping the data clean. They're no longer needing to make sure that they're keeping a high close-won ratio. We're now keeping our KPIs fluid. We are realizing that not everybody is going to be able to adjust to the new selling style, and we have to be fluid with our KPIs and the technology that we use as well. We realize that sometimes we implement the technology, it doesn't work, it looked good, but we also had key takeaways from using those kinds of technologies that didn't quite suit us. We learned and we adapted and evolved to more of a current state. And because we don't really know when the buyers are going to engage with us, they typically only engage with us at 57%. They might come to us when they're ready to buy, at the verbal commitment stage or the close-won stage. Their brother has bought from us before. Being a trusted advisor is more than just being able to sell them the products at the right time. It's really sending them the right products at the right time. And we understand that if a customer is going to buy, our highest gross margin comes from people who buy from us because they really truly understand what we do. So we might have to bring them from close-won to verbal commitment and bring them back into a presentation stage and give them a full proposal, and allowing the automated process to provide feedback of when we can close the deal easily through content management tools. In future state, we may have to divide our outside selling groups into different profiles, because we know that with fluid KPIs, we can now identify the strengths of each seller and properly use them to grow our customer base within this cyclical, non-linear model. We understand that this is a process. We also understand that our coaching has to change as well. And in closing, redefining the outside seller experience here at Citron Hygiene has been very exciting. We identified a few next steps of what we needed to do. We found that we have been moving quite aggressively to inside selling from our outside selling group. And while there are pluses to this model, there are also negatives as well. The pluses being that our outside sellers now have more time to spend with their family and improve their mental health. The negative side of it is that our SME calls, our joint calls, and our team-based meetings have pretty much evaporated. Feedback was face-to-face, was verbal one-on-one in our previous state, and now we have to do it on a more frequent, immediate basis through AI and software, which works. We are now providing continuous feedback from our sellers on how everything is going, so more dialogue. And we're getting really candid experiences from our sellers. One of the things that they wanted us to do was to tech out an outside seller experience of an ideal virtual customer. Outside selling just don't know how to sell to a customer virtually, so that's what we're doing. But in turn, we are also asking that they commit to refine to good data practices. We in management will try on the enablement side to collect the data as much as possible, but if you're not going to put the meeting in and try to evade it, it's not going to work for anybody. And we're going to take the data and we're going to energize outside sellers, take the new winners, take the early adopters, get excited about new change, show wins, show win demos. And management has to change as well. Our next steps, enablement, we are working with coaches, we're working with senior AEs. Some coaches, they're not tech savvy, so we just get the senior AEs to step up to the plate and do the training for them. Commit to a non-linear culture. The old days of having top-down 100 leads may not work anymore. If we're going to be investing in AI and we're going to be investing in automated sales software, allow the software to do the sales for you. First, create the process to gather the data and refine the process. Can't say that enough. Refine, refine, refine. Make sure the data is good, and that's all. Strive for reducing the number one cause of selling, which is seller churn. Happy redefining your outside seller experience, and hope that this was enlightening for everybody. Thank you, and questions.